Today we are going to make a gift pillow. I call it a Valentine's pillow just because of the week that it is, but you can make this pillow for any old reason. I have a bunch of different steps, and I'm going to try to show you a couple of little tips. It's not going to be this is how you do it from the beginning and this is how it ends up at the end. But I have a pattern if you want to make one from the beginning to the end. So how about that? Okay. So I made this pillow up because I had this really cool heart fabric like years ago. Maybe, well, it's probably been 3 years ago now since I made this pattern. Because the fabric that I had there was like it was a panel that had these heart shapes on it, and they were very Victorian, and it's very, you know, Jane Austen-y, or I guess now the updated version of saying it's Jane Austen-y is to say it's Bridgerton-ish. So you can see that this was one piece of the panel, and then this was another piece of the panel, but I just fussy cut the heart out and then lined it, and then now it's a pocket. So, you know, it's kind of like a cross between a, you know, tooth-free pillow and a thing you put diamonds in. So I made it with the heart fabric because that's just what I had and what was cute. So I thought I'd call it a Valentine's Day pillow because you could put a piece of chocolate in there, or you could put a diamond ring in there, and whatever it is, you can reuse it. Since it's, you know, that time of year, I thought we would feature it as a, you know, as a Valentine's thing, but you could do it for anything you want to. It doesn't really matter. In fact, the one I'm doing today is completely different. Yeah, I've done it for bridal shower gifts. I've done it for wedding gifts. I have made one of these for a friend for the ring bearer pillow. And then it becomes a memento from the wedding. So it serves dual purpose. There's lots of different things you can do with this cute little pillow. You can make it multiple different sizes. But a couple of the techniques I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to do the little echo thing and make the pocket. So we're going to talk about how to do the piping with the ruler, because that's what this is right here, is that piping hot binding tool. The tool is designed so that you can put cute little pipings in your binding, but I like it you can do it in lots of different little spaces. So I'm going to show you how to make the piping. I'm going to show you how to do the echo. And if we have time, I'm going to show you how to do the pocket bit in the back. Just as a couple little hot tips, I did put a medium weight fusible interfacing inside this. You don't have to. I didn't do that in the one I'm doing today, but that makes it kind of stand open a little bit, which is fine. I do have, so this was another fabric that I had kitted this with. So this one I had this sort of, you know, Victorian looking pillow. But then another time I got some fabric, I think this was a motif fabric, that on the fabric were these big hearts. So you could use this square as your background piece and then make the pillow part out of this piece. And then you could have the words, or you could do it in reverse if you want the sort of filigree pillow on the outside, and then the little secret on the inside says, "We lived happily ever after." So you could do this with a lot of different, especially if you have panels that have 10 or 12-inch blocks. These work great. All right, so I am going to do, I love Corey Dentini fabric. If you've never worked with Corey Dentini fabric, you are missing out. Because she didn't necessarily start as a quilter, she's a painter. I love her stuff. So anyway, so this is the panel that I'm starting with today. So this is one repeat of this panel. Ooh, what was this line called? I'm trying to remember. Light of the World, I think. A Bloom and Grow. So these are the faces of the girls on this one. I chose these two because their faces are kind of shaped the same. So we're going to make a pillow out of these two pieces. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to make the piping first. What I did was I have 2 1-inch strips of my accent fabric that I'm using, sewn together on the diagonal. Press the seams open just like you're doing binding, because you don't want really thick parts here. If you have a cording foot on your machine, this is a little bit easier, but you don't need it. Any machine with a zipper foot, and all machines have a zipper foot. So when you open up that box of feet and you don't know what they do, this is a zipper foot. You see that? This foot freaks people out because it's shaped weird. Let me explain how this foot works. So this is a zipper foot. You can sew on either side of the foot, and on either side of the little notches that go in, you can clamp your foot on either side here. Today we're going to sew on this side because I'm right-handed. So most machines, feet will pop off at the ankle. So you have a foot and you have an ankle. One of the things I really like about Brother machines is it's really easy to put the feet on and off, and you just click that little thing on the back and they pop on. So if you want to use the other side, you just put it over to the other side and they pop on like that. But we're going to sew on this side because it'll be easier to see. I've got a bit of my cording. We'll talk about the cording in a second, and we'll talk about the ruler in a second. I'm going to tie a knot in the end of the cording. Not a fancy knot. I am not a Boy Scout. Fold your fabric in half. Here's the beauty of doing it like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. So if you fold it and this is half enough for you, then it's half enough for me. But you want to fold it in half. You take your knot and you put your knot at the top. And then you're going to fold the fabric in half. One of the things I love about my machines is that they have a pivot feature, which means that the foot will hover when I stop sewing. I like to have where my cording will move in the back. If I pull on it, which see how it does, that means my foot is not sitting on top of my cord. That will not go well later if your foot is sitting on top of the cord. This machine has a laser on it, but you don't actually need it for this. I'm just using it so that you can see where we're going to go. I have my needle set so that it's going to come down right at the edge of my foot. Sorry, Steve. It's right there. Okay. You could put it further on the inside, but I really want to see where this is going. See how my laser line is pointed right where it's going to stitch? I'm just going to leave that on so you can see where we're going to stitch. You can use the edge of your fingernail. If you don't have a laser line, that's no problem. You can just take your fingernail and kind of scratch along the edge of the cord, and it makes a little bit of a crease. None of this is like life or death, right? So we're going to start sewing. And the reason that a zipper foot is helpful is because the zipper foot will ride right along that cord. If you have a cording foot, it's even easier. You don't even have to do all this adjusting. If you have a cording foot, the foot lays right on the cord, and then you can't even get out of line. But since a lot of people don't have a cording foot, I'm showing you with a zipper foot. All right, so we are just going to ride the foot right along the edge of this cord. And I usually sew 5 or 6 inches and then stop and adjust and move and, you know, zhuzh things around where they need to be. All right, so that's how we make the cording. When you get to the end, don't worry about it. You've tied a knot at the top so you can't pull it out. But now what we have, and I used blue thread on purpose so you could see it, now we have a really nice stitch right next to the edge of that cording. Now here's where the magic happens. So this is why this ruler is groovy. So this is the Groovin' Piping Hot Piping Maker. Piping Hot Binding by Susan K. Cleveland. So this is the tool. The book has directions in it, very good color picture directions. You've got the Groovin' ruler, and you also get, I want to say it's like 10 yards of the piping. So you can just get this and be set to do a project. The really cool part to this happens because what you end up doing is making a perfect seam allowance off of what you've just sewn. So this doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to trim it down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This side gives you a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This gives you 5/8. We're going to slide this on there. You've got the groove in there. We've got our knot, so we're going to pull it down to the end right here. Okay, so now this ruler slides along our groove. So this is where it gets really fancy. So we're just going to trim along our groove all the way up. Okay. Now what you have is a perfect seam allowance attached to your piping. The reason that matters is going to become very self-evident in a second. So this is where it gets groovy, because we're gonna take our piping and we're gonna attach it to our pillow shape here. So I'm gonna line up the edge of my piping, and then I'm gonna take a strip of fabric because I want to have a border print here. Where are my scissors? Oh, they're under here somewhere. There they are. So we're gonna sash this pillow. And the reason I do this is because I don't wanna do all the math. So I make it too big ahead of time and then I trim it down. I'm all about that, all right? So we're gonna take and we're gonna line up our piping with the edge of our block and put our other piece of fabric on top. And then we're gonna sew it. And since we don't need to worry about, I don't wanna do this with a zipper foot because I wanna make sure that I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm gonna use my 1/4 inch foot because I am a quilter after all, and a 1/4 inch foot is like the rule of law. I'm going to reset my needle so it's in the middle. And then I like to have a scant 1/4 inch, so I'm gonna bump it over just one more little pop. Then, since I have all of these 3 layers together on one side, I don't have to worry about where everything else is because I'm gonna get my seam allowance. The reason this matters is going to become evident when we do the binding class, because a 1/4 inch is the thing that makes bindings work. So when you don't have to worry about where your piping is laying, you can just sew on it like you normally would be doing a 1/4 inch. You can just go. You don't have to worry about where you're stitching and where your piping is and if you're sewing over your piping. Okay, so we're going to sew one side. And since I'm going to square this pillow down, I didn't worry about measuring the pieces perfectly either because we're going to square it down. So now look, when I open this, you have a perfect bit of piping right inside your patchwork. And you didn't have to worry about a zipper foot. You didn't have to worry about where you were putting it. You just did a 1/4 inch seam allowance because you're cool. Now on this project, you can press it toward the pillow, you can press it away, it doesn't matter, it just depends on how you want to see it. Normally, I would use thread that matched because I'm not tacky. But today, we're being tacky. So, now we have our pillow front, and we've got this groovy little bit of piping and our sashing on the outside. So I'm just going to trim these ends off. The hardest part about cutting this pillow out is you have to cut the original pillow pretty square. The outside of this pillow, this square that I'm using from this panel isn't a square. It's not like 10.5 inches square. So what I want to do is I want to add more fabric than I need to the outside of my square so that when I go to put it back together again, I can trim off out here and then make it square to fit my pillow form. Because then you're going to have less difference between the top and the bottom and the sides, okay? So then we're going to do the same thing we did before, but we're going to sew it onto this side and we're going to frame our pillow. Now, that's how you use the pipe and hot binding tool. Seriously, try it in your bindings. You'll love it. It's a whole lot of fun. So what I did with this is I took my panel, right here, okay, you see there's her face. On the outside out here, I took a friction pen and I went about a 1/4 inch all the way around her face. And then I just cut it out with scissors. I put a piece of batik on the other side and I cut through both layers at the same time. Then I put them right sides together. I stitched all the way around except for right here, which was enough room to turn it. I turned it. I used my turning tool to put the piece, push the edges out, and I pressed it. Now, since their shapes of their faces are pretty similar, I'm going to take, and you could decide where you want it to be. I did it like this on purpose because they both kind of had blonde hair and her head was bigger. You could play with this wherever you wanted it to be. You could change it so that, so that it's lined up like that. You could put this however you want. I just thought these two would be cute together. So the reason I left my opening here is because this is part of what we're going to top stitch. So I'm just going to hold her face in place. I kind of like where this is at. So I'm going to hold her little face in place. And then I'm going to decide where I want to start stitching. On my heart-shaped pillow, the heart went like this. I started stitching right about here and came down the shape of the V. Her face is kind of oval shaped like that. So I think I'm going to start stitching here, and I'm going to go down and around, and I'm going to stop here so that you have this opening. Okay. Another little tip I'm going to show you with these feet, at least on a Brother machine, we are going to use what we call the stitch in the ditch foot, which is this foot. See how it has that little groove? But we're going to use it like a top stitch foot. So the groovy thing about this foot is that, like a zipper foot, it has indentations on both sides. But see how that part right there kind of hops out? The reason for that is you want your needle to land right there so that if this is riding in the ditch, you're stitching right in the ditch. I want to top stitch it. So I'm going to put my needle about 4 millimeters that away. But I'm still going to use this as my guide so that I can look good. I'm telling you, some of these $12 feet just make you look amazing. So, all right. So I'm going to make a knot. So now see how that edge of that foot right there is just going to ride right along the side of her face. Let me tuck that little pucker in. She is too young for wrinkles. Can do Botox. Okay. And then I'm just going to ride around the edge of her face with the lip of that foot. And I'm just going to keep going until I get to that spot I decided I wanted to stop. We're going to do a tile stitch. Another beautiful thing about this machine. Cut the thread. And we're all done. So, take her acupuncture pin out. Now, you've got a little pocket. And we stitched our turning seam, we stitched our turning part closed, and we don't have to have double layers of stitches. Obviously, I would not have normally used blue thread. I'm probably going to have this as a shop sample, so I'll take that out and put a proper colored thread in. But I think she's cute. So, the next thing I did when I made this pillow was after the pillow was pieced, on the inside here, after I did the piping on all 4 sides and I did my outside piece here, I trimmed it down. This is a 12-inch pillow form, so I trimmed the outside to 12 and 3/4. Okay? And then I took a piece of fusible fleece and I pressed it on the back side. The reason I used fusible is, one, it didn't shift and it makes it so that it's just a little bit quilty. Then I went and top stitched just inside the pillow shape here, and I top stitched around the heart. You could do some free motion quilting in here if you wanted to. You could do some extra straight line quilting out here if you wanted to. You could quilt the whole top if you liked that look. On this, I'd probably be inclined to just do a little bit of echo quilting around this part because I don't want to take away from these words, and I obviously don't want to stitch over her little face. But just a little bit of fusible fleece on the other side will let you do that. Then on the other side, I've done a pocket pillow. So I'm not gonna sew it, I'm just gonna show you how to do a pocket pillow. What I have is the back side of my pillow. This pillow is gonna end up 14-inch pillow form. So I have cut a 14.5-inch square, and then this is 14.5 inches with about 4 inches cut off. What I'll do is fold this under twice and press it, and then I'll top stitch it. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to come up the other side. So now look at how that looks like it's been perfectly hemmed. It looks like I have like an amazing skill set, and really all I did was use a really good foot. It looks really professional. So what I'm gonna do with both of these sides is on this side, I'm gonna top stitch this. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. All I did was fold it under 1/4 of an inch and press it, and then I fold it like 3/8 of an inch and press it. If you wanna do something really fancy, you could fold it under 1/4 of an inch, and then you could fold it over like an inch. You could top stitch here and here, and then you could do some decorative stitching. If you're gonna make this for, say, a wedding pillow, you could use the alphabet in your machine and you could write the couple's name, all right? So if we have both of these pieces together, here's the secret to putting these pillows together. And I always do this backward the first time. What I want you to notice is that the smaller pillow, the smaller piece is inside and the bigger piece is outside. So what that means is when you sew the pillow together, you're gonna take your pillow top's gonna be facing up. The big side of your pillow backing is going to go down first. Your smaller piece is going to go down second. Sorry, I did that backward because I don't have this ready. Your smaller piece is gonna go down second, like that. So that when you turn this, and then you're gonna stitch around, you're gonna clip your corners, you're gonna use your little turning tool, you're gonna poke the corners out, and then when you turn your pillow right way out, this is gonna be on the inside so that it's all tucked up and neat. I always make this part of a lot of the pillows I've seen, the envelopes really only cover like that much, but if you get a fat pillow or you put a down pillow or something fluffy in it, or you have a frugger that lays on your pillows all the time, it bows that open. So you need a big space that tucks this up in there. All right, so that's what I have to show you guys this week. I hope you have fun, and I hope you're inspired to play with some binding, some piping, because I think it would be fun. And I hope everybody's staying safe and getting some sewing done, and gosh, melting. It's been cold. It's supposed to be better this week, so we'll see. So we'll see you soon. Have a good night. Bye.